Welcome back to Too Young for This, Too Old for That with Annie and Angie.
This is our podcast where we compare life across the age divide. Annie's 24, I'm 54, so that's a whole 30-year gap. And despite that, we are fast friends. And today we are really delighted to welcome another special guest onto the show, Dr. Paul Elgey. Before we head into our interview, which you're going to love, just a quick word of thanks to our fabulous sponsors, Wilfred's, the non-alcoholic aperitif, and we're always really, really grateful for their support. All right, let's go. We hope you enjoy today. Video episode, audio episode. Love to have you with us.
Hello. Today we're joined with Dr. Paul Elgey, a medical aesthetic. Hi! So you are a medical aesthetics doctor with over 20 years of experience in medicine and facial rejuvenation. So after a long career as a medical doctor, Paul made the move into aesthetic medicine, but he now specializes in subtle natural treatments designed to restore facial harmony rather than dramatically change how someone looks, working from his clinic on Orchard Street in London. Paul offers anti-wrinkle treatments, derma fillers, and filler dissolving, and many, many more treatments, which we'll dive into during this episode. And Paul, when we were researching you, we found that one of the biggest concerns you hear from patients is the fear of looking unnatural, not looking like themselves, which we thought would make you the perfect guest to explore how our relationship with aging has changed across generations. So, Paul.
Absolutely. That sounded like a really cliched introduction.
It's
I'm
always
actually very
good
normal.
to you yourself, being introduced like that. But for
I feel
anyone
I've got to live up to it now.
so anyone who hasn't come across your work, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I'm an aesthetic doctor, which means, well, it's changed over the time, but it means I do injectables such as dermal fillers, botulinum toxin, biostimulators to help with collagen elastin production, and now have a laser in clinic. So, a lot of it is just to help people achieve a version of themselves that they want to be, I suppose, more than anything else. And I think more importantly, to make people, retain their own identity without making them look like somebody else. I think that is, on that introduction, I think that is what people are most scared about, just kind of looking like somebody else. So, when someone comes in, really important thing, first of all, is that, we respect, them, who they are. So, yeah, that's what I do.
Great. But you didn't start off in medical aesthetics. And one of the topics that we've talked about a lot on the podcast is sort of career pivots and changing things. You started off as a GP, is that right?
I did, yeah. So I actually started off in pediatrics, believe it or not, in the very early days. So doing neonates and pediatrics. I loved that job, but just too emotionally draining.
Yeah.
And so, moved into GP and was a GP for probably 18 years. So partner in a practice in Twickenham. Absolutely loved it, I have to say. I think it was a real privilege. I loved meeting people, their families, seeing kids grow up. You see life and death. You're in a really privileged position. So I loved it.
Yeah.
But I did naturally reach a point where I thought, I need something different. I think you do reach an age where you think, have I done everything I can do in this career now? And there was increasing pressures in the NHS, and it just felt like a good time to try something new. Plus, I loved art at school and was kind of pushed more towards science because that's what you did when, you got good grades. And aesthetics is a really good way of kind of combining art and medicine. So for me, I just found my perfect niche, to be honest with you.
I've never thought of it like that before, like art and medicine being combined. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, well, you're evaluating faces, which are kind of contours, they're shadows of light and dark, and you're sculpting in a way. When you're using dermal filler, you're sculpting a face in a way. It sounds crazy, but that's kind of what you're doing. And if you haven't got a good artistic eye, then that sculpture's not going to look very good. So you've got to be a little bit artistic in this industry. But yeah, I just fell into it. And I just felt really comfortable doing it. It does have challenges, like people who are in medicine do still look at it in a bit of a odd way, like as if you've kind of, you've left a profession that, has is distinguished and you've gone into something like this which is quite superficial. So I still get that a lot, even from friends, which is a bit crazy, but I don't really care. I love it.
So
Um,
we've known each other for a couple of years because we
we
work
have.
in the same place in central London, and I've
Mm.
never heard you talk about the sculpturing nature. It's so beautiful. Do you talk to your patients about that?
Uh, I think some patients might be put off a little bit that we're sculpting their face, but we do talk about that. A lot of patients, when they look in the mirror, they can't see what they're not happy with.
Yeah.
It's odd, like they just look at a version of themselves, but they don't know why they're not happy with it. And I suppose my job is to, well, with the training that I've had, is to look at their face and look at where is the light changing on the face, where are the shadows now, where are the contours, how has that changed from where you perceive it to be? Looking at old photographs, how has that changed? Has it descended? Have you lost weight? Have you lost volume in specific areas? So it takes a bit of an artistic eye to kind of to see that in a way. It's like a makeup artist. That's kind of what you are. You're like a makeup artist. Who works with light and shadow. That's kind of what you're doing with dermal filler in a way.
What a
And it's been
beautiful
amazing.
description.
You would want a doctor who's more artistically inclined rather than someone who views you as like, oh, well, you need, X, Y, Z when it comes to your face because it's so deeply personal as well. Like, I know, like, what you were saying was so interesting about like some other people in the industry might be like, oh, you're going in towards that. But to me, like, how you look and how you feel is so inherently tied to like a lot of your identity and how
Yeah,
you feel within yourself that it can
yeah.
actually impact, I think, your overall well-being, so I think it's a really fascinating one. It's very like Michelangelo coded, isn't it, with the whole like sculpture. I quite enjoy it.
So I've got a question on the age front then.
Yeah.
Who's the oldest person you've treated, the youngest person that you've treated? What's
Oh
the
gosh.
age gap?
The oldest person, well, probably in their 70s actually. People still want to look good no matter how old you are. Yeah, I have a lot of older patients who come in to see me, and obviously they don't want huge lips or, extreme changes, but they may have a little bit of kind of skin quality that they want addressing. They may have, dehydration in the skin. You're looking at hydrating it using kind of biostimulators or other products. So yeah, we get older patients in for sure, and
In.
I love seeing them. It's fantastic.
And young, it's just the age.
Youngest, well, I have a limit of 18. It's a kind of obviously it's a cutoff that is a legal requirement. But I do have people messaging me on Instagram who are very young, which is really disturbing. And it's sometimes quite hard to know to answer them. I think the other thing that's important is, you do have younger patients who do maybe have some medical issues that you
Yeah.
don't want to be neglecting those either. So say, for example, someone's had a cleft lip and
Mhm.
it's causing real psychological issues. You don't want to say it's a blanket 18, we can't see you. You want to give them a voice. You need them to be able to express why they're concerned. Just saying you're not 18, I can't see you, it just means they're going to go to some backdoor person who kind of
Yeah.
like is going to mess up their face. So, my job is to filter that out and see kind of who do I need to speak to, who do I don't maybe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I think.
completely agree with that. And I really hear that as well, because when I was a teenager, I had terrible, terrible, terrible acne. I know it's slightly different, but like I had like it was really quite debilitating in terms of like going to school. And I remember like it reached a point where a girl in school said, "Oh my God, Annie Lewis's face makes me feel sick." And it was really brutal. And so my mum, she took me to Harley Street, and like when I was 16, 17, and I had like laser to help my skin. And honestly, like
Mhm.
life changing.
Yeah.
And even my dad, he was a bit like, "Oh, I'm not sure." To this day, is like, that's the best money and time. And so it's like, I think, like you said, I think it's like disturbing when it's like an 18-year-old's like, "Oh, I just feel like I need to change my face because of Instagram and Love Island and whatever." But there's also, like you say, there's cases where it's like, actually, it's so much better to have an honest conversation and plan of action with a professional like you than going to somewhere dodgy that's unsafe. you know?
And I think some of the clinics are quite soon to jump in to do treatment, and actually
Yeah.
it's not sometimes the treatment doesn't solve the problem.
Mm.
You do a treatment, but the problem still persists. So
Yeah.
if you're an experienced doctor, you're used to dealing with people and understanding where that feeling comes from and why are they feeling that way. And I think it's really important to understand that first before you put a needle into somebody. It's really
Yeah.
important to understand where in anybody. I don't necessarily mean age. I mean anybody who comes in. My job is to find out why are you feeling that way. Because
Mm.
I may do a treatment, and if the treatment isn't going to be the cure, they're never going to be happy. And that's why sometimes you end up with real extreme faces.
Yeah.
People come in and have lip treatment, but they're still not happy with something. They go away, they come back to see somebody else, more lip filler. Before you know it, their lips are huge and they're still not happy. So the whole idea is, you've got to really deep dive into it and find out where is that connection between the psychological and the physical coming from, and how can I address that? And usually it's not just about needles or lasers, or
Yeah.
it's about kind of a multifactorial approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really important. But that's where medical experience really comes in. I mean, I was seeing patients every 10 minutes for 18 years. you know,
Yeah.
you learn to adapt and to understand
So
where people
given
are coming
that,
from.
do you ever turn patients away?
Oh, loads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely loads. Like I would say, my accountant will hate this, but I probably turn away about 20% of people.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Um,
think I
well,
think that's great as a clinician. I think, to be honest, I think that really shows that someone coming to you could have a level of trust that you would be not just, "Ah, yeah, okay," break out the case of stuff, but actually say, "No, this isn't gonna work," or "This is not appropriate."
yeah, I think that's just really important. Some people don't need it. As we were saying before, some
Mm.
people, that doing that treatment isn't going to fix the issue. Some people have unrealistic expectations that I just can't achieve. And I think it's just important to be honest about it. Even if those people go somewhere else, it does put a little idea in their head that maybe something isn't so wrong. Um, or maybe opens the door to them investigating that in a different way. So yeah, I think that's really important. Turning people away is a big part of what we should be doing as medical aestheticians.
Yeah.
Really important. And actually, it helps business in a way, because even though those patients might not need treatment, they tell other people like, "Oh my God, he said don't do anything." People love that.
For
You know,
sure. For sure, yeah.
um, like you say, Angie, it's about that trust, isn't it? It's about having
Yeah.
trust with people. And,
Yeah.
your whole relationship as a GP is built on trust with your patient.
Yeah.
The foundation is trust. So every time you do a treatment, it's based on, do I trust this doctor on, and do I trust this patient?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the foundations of everything we do.
Yeah. I really respect that. So when you qualified, what do you think doctors thought about aesthetics and aging, and how do you think that's evolved to 2026? I know it's a really
Oh,
vast question, but
yeah.
we
Yes.
discussed just
Yeah.
before this call that you said it's changing a lot,
Yeah.
this whole
Yeah.
kind of industry. So what's kind of your thoughts on that?
Well, I suppose, I mean, we didn't have the resources that we have today. Years ago, we didn't really have Botox even. People didn't really think about dermal fillers or lasers or anything like that. So from an aesthetic point of view, we didn't really think about that. But from an aging point of view, I think, I suppose when I first started, I think we used to see aging as kind of like just a linear progression. It was inevitable. That was what was going to happen. You were going to age. And as doctors, our job is to pick up the pieces along the way. You get an illness and we help,
Yeah.
treat it. But I think, as years have gone by, we kind of realize that aging isn't that linear progression. There are things we can do to change it, interventions we can do. There's huge advances in the wellness sector in terms of kind of epigenetics, and even changing your genetic picture with DNA picture. So that's really important too. So yeah, it's become less linear, I suppose, and I suppose a bit more adaptable in that we can make changes that will help not maybe reverse aging, but slow it to some degree.
No.
And I think in my industry, that could be anything from kind of UV protection. When I was young, we used to put factor 2 on and sit in the sun all day and think, oh yeah, this is great, getting a lovely tan. But, now we've got SPFs, which are really high quality. So we're reducing down skin aging, we're reducing down DNA damage. So in things like cancers, basal cell cancers, skin cancers, we can reduce down the long-term risks of those. We can also treat them, There's a lot of evidence to show that lasers will, like laser treatment won't just help stimulate collagen and elastin, it will kind of change the genetic DNA as well. So reducing down the risk of skin cancers. So, that's really important. Obviously, it's not something that we tell patients because we don't want people coming in with skin cancer wanting treatment. Obviously, that needs dealing with in a particular way with a plastic surgeon, dermatologist. But long-term results will show that it reduces down those risks. So, we're able to change and modify aging, I think, now, rather than just watch it occur.
Yeah.
So in the old days, people would have talked about aging, growing old gracefully, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Does that phrase still come up?
Not so much, if I'm totally honest with you. I think it more comes up actually in an older patient who maybe is feeling like she's doing something vain. And when someone says that, I'm kind of like, this is my opportunity to inform them that, you don't have to think of it as being vain, looking after yourself,
Yeah.
So for me, that keyword, should I just grow gracefully, is like someone asking for acceptance that they can do a treatment. So it has changed. I don't think younger patients think about that at all. They don't think about growing old gracefully. Definitely not. Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that's really interesting. Because sorry, Annie, I don't have any work done, and I hope you're not looking at my face going, I know I will say this to you with me in real life, right? And I always go, what? Don't look at my face because you're probably, sizing me up and going, you need
Well, I
me.
do it on everybody. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Everyone's got a plan, a virtual plan.
Same. I've got an osteopath looking at people's posture. I'm like,
No, yeah, you can't help it, can you?
no.
Between the two of you, I'm like, stop looking at me right now. Like, oh my God. I'm like, my posture.
No, I'm sitting like this.
So my generation, 54, and most of my friends, and I think it is about the cohort that you're in, right? I'd say most of my friends haven't had much work done or any work done at all. And so for us, it's sort of like, I don't know whether it's a badge of honor that you don't have things done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
no, I know, yeah.
and so I guess there's a cohort of us there that maybe we'd be better off taking the youngsters' approach of actually trying to age optimally rather than dealing with things when they get to be a problem. Annie, what do you think from your side?
I think it's so interesting because, like, I'm very open to this I'm only 24 right now, but as I age, I'm very open to, like, if you want to have something done and it's your body, do it, And I sit there and I'm like, if when I'm like, whether it's in 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. I would definitely get something done and be like, yeah, and I feel great for it. And what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's mine because I think I'm just a big believer in like, I know, like, I love my clothes and my makeup. And I think even if you don't, I know how feeling good in yourself can really elevate and feel good in your life. And I think, especially since my work is on camera and stuff like that, I see my face 10 times more than a normal human should.
Yeah.
But I remember like I was in the bathroom in Clapham at Little Blue Door, which is a really cool like bar in Clapham. And then I heard some girls next door who were like 22, so like 2 years younger than me. And they were like, oh, I need to get my like filler redone. And I was like, maybe I'm a little bit naive to it. Like, I think it's something that I would like down the line consider whenever it feels right.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe I think I'm naive to how normal it is at my age that people have stuff done. I think I'm a bit like, oh yeah, no, that's something you do when you're older. And I think there's anything wrong with that. Like I said, I think it's people's body.
Yeah.
But
What do you think about the 20-somethings? So would it be
yeah, the
good to
20
ask-
somethings I'm like, I don't know how I
Yeah.
feel about,
would we ask people how old you are?
Me,
Yeah.
I'm 50 this year. Yeah.
You look amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm in the right job, to be fair.
You look
You know what?
amazing.
I think it's just about looking after yourself now. I think it depends what they're coming in for. You it's a tricky one, isn't it? How to put this. So you may get some people whose facial proportions don't fit a norm, and that's absolutely fine. I absolutely love individuality. In fact, I people who come in for certain treatments, I'm like, I love it. It makes you look different. Don't change it, you know?
Yeah.
But there are some people who feel really self-conscious about it. So say, for example, they've got recession of the chin, micrognathia, or they've got a bump on their nose that they
Yeah.
can't stop thinking about, and they're 20. Would I treat it? Well, I'd deep dive into it. Why? I'd look at kind of like, have they looked at any alternatives? Have they have kind of like psychological counseling regarding it if it's that extreme? But I don't see a problem in someone that age treating it for that reason.
Yeah.
What I would feel uncomfortable with is someone saying, well, I've just been watching Love Island and I love that young lips and I want them like that. That's different, I think.
Yeah.
So it depends why they're coming in, and what the underlying, psychological background to it is. But I think, remember, the skin's an organ of the body.
Yeah.
know? And the same ways you'd look after your liver or your kidneys or your brain, people are wanting to look after their skin as well. It's the largest organ in the body. So I don't think there's anything wrong with looking after it. I think it's become a bit of a shameful thing
Yeah.
as well. There's a lot of shame on women to grow old gracefully. I think
Yeah.
that term is I think it's really demeaning to women. I don't
Yeah.
like that term. I think everyone is individual. Some people want to not change anything, but some people, I tell you what I call it. It's like a gap, a void. When you think of yourself, Angie, I don't know how old you feel inside, but what I find is that people come into me and the way they feel mentally is so different to the way they look physically when they look in the mirror. And that's a huge void in some people. It might not be much in some, and they can feel quite comfortable aging gracefully. But some people, that void is huge. And it creates a real uncomfortableness when they look in the mirror and they see the person looking at them is someone completely different to how they feel inside. So my job is to fill that void somehow.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Do you know what I found so interesting there? Just really quick is when you said, "Oh, it's a bit like shameful that whole like a lot of pressure on women to be like age gracefully," whereas it's like I feel like men. I've heard a lot like from friends that it's like, "Oh, men get better with age," or "Men become a silver fox,"
I
and
know.
and it's like whereas a woman, it's like it feels like you can't win. It's like if you get work done, it's like, "Oh, you don't love yourself," or it's
Yeah.
like if you do like if it's like if you do grow.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I suppose I'm a bit skewed because I don't see that the cohort that you are, Angie, like that those patients don't come into me. So I'm probably naturally skewed into people who want treatment done. But I do try and keep grounded, and like speaking to people like you in the clubhouse is really important because it gives me a different approach kind of mentally as to how I'm going to address that. So I think that's the thing as well. You've got to keep up to date with those things.
Yeah, I think one thing that you just said really actually resonated with, or is I've written it down so I can go away and think about it. And I guess I'd always thought of medical aesthetics and the work that you do as changing things. And what you just said is that you're looking after your skin versus changing it. And I think that, I mean, look, I'm going to admit that my face cream is the £3.99 oil of Ulay from Morrison's, and I've used that for 30 years, and I still right. I know, yeah, but that's, so what
It works for you, Angie.
just I'm lucky I've got good genes, right? It's a genetic
No,
thing. So I've
exactly.
still got stuff that needs sorting. But I think thinking about looking after your skin versus changing it. So
Yeah.
that's my homework to go and think about and journal about that. But the other thing then you said is some people will come in with asymmetries or different proportions, and that's fine and that can be really attractive. I think as someone who hasn't had any work done, particularly, I mean, I have a facial, I have but there's a group of younger people. I'm not sure if we should clip this or not, Annie, but everyone seems to look the same, right? There's
Yeah.
definitely a look
Yeah.
out there, right? The lips, the thing, the eyes, the eyebrows.
Yeah.
That I find as an older woman and as a mum, I find that a bit disturbing.
But I think most doctors who are doing aesthetics would find that disturbing too. You've got to remember, in this country, there's no regulation on who can do filler. Not one. There's no regulation. Like, you could go out and buy filler online and treat somebody. There is no regulation. There's no qualification. There's guidance, but there's no actual qualification. So anyone can do it. Hairdresser.
So it's like getting your ears. It's like ear piercings. Like you could get a kit on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, 100%. So, and that's the issue, is that the people who should be doing it aren't doing it. You know, it's been a lot of people, for probably financial reasons, are going to people who don't have that medical way of thinking. And you know, the problem is they're taught in a specific way. They're probably all taught at the same academy how to do a cheek, how to do a lip, and so everybody looks the same. And you've got to remember that training is just a guide. You know, it's like, this is how you can do it, but as a doctor, you would learn to adapt that according to the patient. And I'm not saying this about all aesthetic practitioners, by the way, because even though they shouldn't be doing it, potentially, some actually could be good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that all of them are bad, actually. But I think, you know, when you go to a doctor, they're held by certain guidelines. And, you know, I'm a member of the GMC. I have to go with their guidance. Do no harm is the first thing I think about when I have a patient in. But you don't get that with a lot of practitioners, and they're watching Love Island and they're thinking everybody wants to look like that. And actually, it goes back, Annie, to that thing like you said about, you know, there's an uncomfortableness about not looking like yourself. You lose an identity.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these younger patients, although they think, oh, great, I've got big lips, it causes a bit of an identity crisis, I think. And I think we're probably just starting to see the tip of that iceberg, if I'm honest.
Well, it's like Molly May. It's like that was a huge, I think, cultural moment, weirdly enough. Like that there was that famous video where she had like lots of filler in her face.
Yeah.
And now she's, you know, gone the other way and had it all dissolved. Whereas it's like, I mean, I don't know what she went to, you know, I've got no idea, but you can imagine, like, I don't think there's actually anything wrong with her having filler in the first place. And I'd imagine she gets so much rubbish online if she got filler tomorrow again.
Yeah.
But I think it's more just like that thing of like still looking like yourself, and it being like like what you're saying about being personalized to your face and not just fitting, oh, I want to look like that girl on Love Island. Because I think shows like Love Island and that influencer culture has really changed our perspective, especially as someone who's grown up with it. I remember watching it being like, oh my God.
I know.
And like at one point I had really bleached blonde long hair, and like it wasn't really a vibe. But that's
that photo, Mike, put it in when you edit. Picture of Annie with bleached blonde hair.
You know what? It creates a norm as well. I was just going to say quickly, actually, in terms of kind of studies, there was actually a study done by one of my friends, Dr. Kate Goldie, and colleagues, looking at our perception and how it can be altered by things around us. So what they did is they took 6 pictures of lips ranging from very thin to very big. And they asked people to rank them. I can't remember how many people there were in this study, but they basically asked people to rank them according to which they thought was the nicest lip. And most people picked the second one, i.e. a little bit of volume. And then they asked people to look at a picture of someone with huge lips for 90 seconds and then mixed up the photographs and got them to choose again. And everyone chose the third one.
wow.
So it shows that we're really influenced by what we see around us. And that's really important from my point of view, because that study has made me realize that I need to stay grounded in my aesthetic way of thinking. Because if I start to think that big lips are the norm, I'm going to start creating some really awful results. So I really try and stay grounded and, you know, appreciate the beauty in, as you say, Angie, grown gracefully, or looking at people who maybe don't want to change their identity and keeping that perspective.
And I think it's really interesting what you say, you know, so our clinics are next to Selfridges. So it's a particular sort of demographic in central London. And, you know, if you go into Selfridges, all ages, you know, there is a preponderance, is that the word, of, you know, very shiny faces, very sculpted eyebrows, a lot of lip stuff. And that's just what I would notice as a lay person. And I think, the difference between people that have had work done and people that haven't is very stark. And it must be interesting, if you are in that population where all you do is lips, or you hang out with people that have all had their lips done, and then of course you're going to feel really awkward.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. There's also studies, right, that if you who you hang around with influences how you end up, right? If you hang around with smokers and you're not a smoker, you've got more likelihood of starting to smoke. If you hang around with people that are a little overweight, you've got more likelihood of your weight rising. So from, a health point of view, who you hold, your gang influences your health. So it's not surprising, is it, that, yeah.
What would you say is like, I don't know whether there is an answer to this. Maybe you're going to be like, there's no treatment. But is there one treatment that do treatments go through trends?
Yeah.
Like, do people go and like, oh, like, I saw you did a post about, for example, I know like the Kris Jenner iconic face. She does look, oh my God, she looks amazing. Wow. But like, because we are so influenced online, is there like specific trends and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
People come in asking for things.
Yeah, I mean, there is all the time. Like but they come and go. I'm not a trend follower. I like to sit back for at least a year, 18 months when a new product comes along or a new machine comes along, because a lot of what you see isn't based on human experience or studies. It's based on usually animal. So I like to sit back and wait and see kind of the effect on people. But absolutely, you see trends like polynucleotides was the big trend of last year. And we saw, people coming in their thousands asking for treatments, but it doesn't suit everybody. And,
Is that salmon sperm? That one?
that's the one. That's the one.
Sorry, I nodded along there. I went, yeah, polynucleotide. And then I was actually like, well, there's that salmon sperm.
Yeah, well, it's basically like little fragments of DNA that's taken from the gonads of salmon or trout. No fish were involved. And yeah, people are injecting it. But polynucleotides do have a place, most certainly. There is evidence for them in terms of things like DNA cell signaling and things like that, and hydration. But you can't then blanket say, just because they have a great effect on some people, they're going to make you miraculously get less wrinkles, So I think, trends do come and go. Even machines are becoming very big. But, there are new machines on the market every day with all these claims of like, you're going to get a non-surgical facelift with this machine. And a load of it's rubbish, if I'm honest with you. And they come and go,
Fair enough.
What do you love doing?
Ooh. Oh, well, it depends on the person. What do I love doing? I honestly, again, this sounds a bit cliched, but I used to do lots of filler before, and I used to see big dramatic changes when I first started, if I'm honest. But because it's a way of you're still learning. But as you go on, you realize that obviously that's not the right approach. And now, for the last kind of like 5-6 years, I love that holistic approach, like doing little bits of everything on somebody. So, most of the time, one treatment is not going to solve that person's concerns. It normally needs it's probably like you, and when you're looking from an osteopath point of view, there's not usually one treatment that will solve their issue. They normally lead a kind of a multifactorial or holistic approach. So I love doing that. I love the process now, rather than kind of like they come in, have injections, and they look different. That's what it used to be like. And now it's kind of like a year down the line, I'll see and I'm like, wow, you look incredible.
That's because you're a sculptor and an artist, right?
I've got a question. Sorry, I've been meaning to ask this, and I'll kick myself if we get to the end of the episode.
Okay.
So obviously you're a man. Do you get many men in? Because I've noticed like men in general, I think, are taking better care of themselves. Maybe you'll be like, that's not what I see. But like I went for my manicure the other day, and there were two rather and quite like proper like butch, like city men next to me getting their pedicure. And I first of all, I was like so relieved. I was like, as you should. But I was like, I feel like men are looking after themselves, like in general. What's the situation with men?
Yeah, it's quite trendy now. I mean, men don't want to be left behind. They want to. Most men didn't come in because they felt ashamed.
Right.
I'm honest with you. Like they thought, oh, this isn't very masculine to have Botox for wrinkles. But now, celebrities are doing it. David Beckham's doing it. It kind of opens the door to other men coming in and doing it for.
What's your face, Angie? Oh my God. So number one, I'm not a fan of the Beckhams, right? So sorry, anyone that's
Okay.
watching and listening, right? They are not at the top of my favourite list. Number two, he looked like Simon Cowell at the football. Do you not think?
Yes, I think that's the issue. Is people are going too far, aren't they?
He looked
So
awful. He looked
yeah.
even worse than Brad Pitt. And Brad
Yeah.
Pitt looks awful as well at the moment. Sorry, Paul. We can do a video on
No, it's fine.
Paul, who says? Is there like a celebrity, a male celebrity who you think's done it well? Whether it was Beckham, Allah, before it went to.
Oh, well, that's a hard one because a lot of the time you just wouldn't see it. Like, I think that's the idea, is that there are people that I think, oh my God, they're growing old well, but you don't, if it's done well, you don't see it. But nobody really knows whether they've had treatment done. That is the secret to all the treatments that we're doing. My approach is I want it to be invisible. I don't want people to know that you've had filler. Like if a patient came to me and said, oh yeah, my mum said, oh, I love your cheeks since they're being done, I'd be horrified.
Yeah.
Know? So a lot of the time now you want it invisible. And I think this is where this kind of like observation bias comes in. We're swayed into thinking that aesthetic treatments are wrong because we're biased by the bad results we see.
Yeah.
But we don't see the good results. And I think that's the issue. It's putting a lot of people off having treatments because they see the bad stuff, but the good stuff is silent. So there's that observation bias,
That's so interesting because I work with a lot of brands and they always say to me that their best products, for example, are like sometimes the ones that they can't necessarily like show the results of because they're like, it just does.
Yeah.
It just does. And when you use it, when I test them out, I use them for a long time and I'm like, yeah, it just does.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to sell because how could you sell?
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I get what you mean there. But yeah, I think the approach of it should just be invisible. I think that's exactly bang on.
And also, like, the other thing that I love is when you do some treatments and several months down the line, you take some photographs, and sometimes patients say, oh, would you send me those photographs? And I send them like, you know what, I can't see a difference. I don't think it's done anything. And then you show them the before from kind of like 6 months ago, and they're like, oh my gosh. Like because you're seeing yourself every day, you don't notice those changes. If it's done well, you won't really notice it. You'll just
so
look and feel better, but you won't know why. And that is really the secret to good aesthetic treatments.
And that must help with the body stop with any body dysmorphia and like going too far because you are literally like, no, here's A, here's B.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they just feel like that's enough now.
Yeah.
They reach an end point. It's like, it's difficult, isn't it? We went back, we talked about that thing, didn't we? About aging gracefully or aging optimally, I think you said, Angie.
Yeah.
And I think that optimally is really difficult because it doesn't have an end point. It's almost easier to age gracefully because it has an end point, i.e. your age, but optimally doesn't. It has no boundaries. And I think a lot of patients get kind of like down that rabbit hole and into that trap. It's almost harder to age in that way than it is to age gracefully, I think.
For sure, I think so. And, I think it's all the trend of, well, once you get in it, then all of a sudden you're doing peptides and,
exactly. It's where to stop.
You start a protein and then before you know it, you're living in your bubble like that guy, Brad. What's the American guy, who spends 8 hours a day on his longevity, looks awful and is clearly not happy at all.
Yeah.
Yes. So should we do a quick fire round? Quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
What's one treatment you think is overdone?
Probably lips.
Okay.
Is there anything you would never have done to your own face? You don't answer, but this.
Well, it depends who's doing it. No, that's the tricky thing is when you do treatments, you don't trust anybody else to do them.
Yeah, exactly.
I was about to say, like, being a doctor, it must be like, how the hell do you find your own doctor,
Really
right?
hard. It's really hard. I want to inject myself. That's the problem. I
Do you?
think I wouldn't have.
Brilliant.
Do you?
I wouldn't have threads, that's for sure.
You wouldn't have?
Threads.
What's that?
Have you heard of threads? No.
I have.
Threads are where you put kind of like a little thread under the skin and you pull it and you lift tissue by pulling a thread. A lot of people do it. It's very, very popular.
Inside, not like that Jane Fonda
Inside.
thing in
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
Frankie where she's got
Inside.
it on the
Yes,
outside.
it's kind of like anchored inside, underneath the skin, anchored inside and pulled.
I could probably do with a bit of that, to be fair, but yeah. What's one thing every 24-year-old should know or should be doing other than SPF?
Ooh. The first thing that came to mind was SPF. Eating well and exercising.
Grand. I did my workout this morning.
You know what? Yeah, I think that's really important though, because that is the main thing. We want to prevent having treatments, right? So looking after yourself is the most important thing.
I'll go to you, Paul, anyway, don't worry.
We all will now.
Yeah, you know. Is gua sharing a load of tosh? Like the
I think so, if I'm honest.
I love a gua sha.
I know you do, Andy, but I'm not sure it does very much.
I'm like a maniac in the morning. I have like a metal and I'm like,
What are you trying to do with it?
I don't know. I think, I just think I wake up and I look like a little hamster sometimes because I think
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm so puffy. And I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh God. And I'm like, I get ice and I like put it on my eyes and I'm like, just puff, you know?
I mean, it might help like temporarily get rid of some, because when you're lying flat, your face will suffuse with fluid, right?
Yeah.
And when you're upright, it'll drain down. So over time, that goes. I mean, how bad you look at first thing in the morning, you think, oh my Jesus, you look in the mirror, you think those eyes are like double puffs this morning. But like half an hour later, you look fine.
Yeah, true. True. You're so right.
And you're like moving lymph around.
Yeah, sorry, hang on. From an osteopathic point of view, I think gua sha works on the fascia, and because I can feel the difference. I've trained as a gua sha person, not for the face but for the back, and you can feel where there's sort of like the fascia's a bit congested. You can feel that feeling, I think. But yeah, because it feels like
maybe. I honestly don't know much about it, if I'm totally honest with you. I don't know whether there's any evidence or studies to show that, and I'm an evidence guy, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. And that might be something to look into, Angie, and see if there's any evidence for it actually, because I'd be interested.
See you later.
I'd be gua sharing every day if there is.
Look, guys, if I'm not going to look like Bella Hadid, I'm not going to keep gua sharing and thing. So just like, so, and what is your biggest, do you think people come into your clinic, ultimately it's wanting to look younger? Do you think deep down what you find most of the time is that they're actually just wanting to like feel younger? What's your like kind of closing hot take on that?
I mean, I think it's going back to that thing of they want to look how they feel.
I love that.
Everyone wants to look how they feel. And it's trying to make them understand that we have to be realistic. What can we do to avoid?
23. Okay, so your last question, other than our too old, too young, what work does Angie need doing? We can
Oh,
clip
come on, Angie, that's the secret. I'll show you your plan later, don't worry.
She's getting a free consultation on our pod.
I'll rob a bank on my way home, my way in. No, so what's the advice that you would give to 50-year-olds then, other than SPF?
50, 50.
50, yeah, my generation, the Gen X's.
I mean, those generations notoriously didn't look after their skin. Our generation didn't look after their skin. And so they're higher risk of developing skin cancers. So my honest answer is forget beauty things for now. If you see anything that is odd, get it checked out.
Nice. So, Paul, since you are on the too young for this, too old for that podcast, we always like to ask our guests, what has made you feel in recent times too young and what has made you feel too old?
Oh, too young. I went on a weekend away with one of my younger friends and his friend, and I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, I feel so old. Just, you forget how old you actually are until you're around people who are younger. And I was like, wow, I really don't feel how I think I feel. So I'm definitely older. So I think being around younger people, so I mean, it's healthy, isn't it? Because it makes you stay young, right?
Yeah.
But I think you do realize that I do think differently. And that's quite nice. I think that's actually quite nice because it makes you realize that it's okay to get older. You know, there are real positive things that come with getting older, i.e., I feel comfortable with myself and satisfied now.
I love that. Yay. That's lovely.
Annie,
Oh, me?
young for this, too old for that moment?
Oh, we discussed this before the podcast. I was at Guildfest with my 6-year-old father, which was fantastic. But I have to admit, Dad, I did feel a bit too young when I was listening to like, oh my God, like I think I was on Heather Small. I like the Proclaimers, but you know, everyone knew the words and I was just waiting for 500 miles. So I'm so glad I went, but I may have been a little bit too young. Angie, what's yours this week? Too young or too old?
So I don't know if we've done this, but I went to Ibiza a couple of weeks ago. Did we do this ever in the pod yet?
No, we've not discussed your Ibiza-ness.
I went to Ibiza for the weekend a couple of weekends ago, and I was sitting on the plane thinking, oh my God, I'm really, really too old for this. And can I say that when I got there, the one thing I just thought was fabulous, they were all ages from 18 to 65, 70, 80, grandparents, kids, mums and dads in the middle. And it was fabulous. And I felt the right age all the way through. And yes, love a bit of Ibiza, love a bit of heavy house. So yes, I felt like I was in the right place at the right time.
Love that.
Although an umbrella and a parasol fell on my face at the beach club, and now I've got a lovely little mark here. So I'll
Do you know you can do polynucleotides for that?
Oh, there you go. Well, I'm going to go and find next door. I've got a cork pot.
Or has they? I wouldn't recommend registering for yourself, Angie. It could look quite fun.
Well,
When you're squeezing the gonads of fish in your neighbour's garden.
what a way to end the episode. And on that note, Paul, it has been absolute joy having you on the podcast. Tell our listeners where they can find out more about you.
So I have a website, www.drpaulelgey.com, and my Instagram, again, at Dr. Paul Elgey.
Have a look at Paul's Insta. It's fabulous. Loads of information, loads of advice, and his wonderful, fun personality as well. So things to do and things not to do. It's been a delight to have you on. Thank you so much. I know that we're going to get loads of questions and probably we're going to have to do a part 2 at some point.
100%. I'm up for it.
Amazing. Thank you, Paul.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
In the next episode.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Follow us where you can on the website, Insta, YouTube, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Paul. Lots of love, gang.
Bye. Bye.